Welcome to Sarpy Outlook. I'm Mike Kelly, and my guest today is Don Preister. Don is an Army veteran with service in Vietnam, a former four-term Nebraska senator serving the 5th District. He's currently serving on the Bellevue City Council, Ward 5. He's a businessman who helped develop Joy Creations, and just 4 years ago, he founded Green Bellevue, and we'd like to talk about that today. Welcome, Don.
Thank you, Mike. Good to be here.
Notice that your background would just fit right into Green Bellevue. Would you kind of go over the background, especially at the state legislature?
Sure, be glad to. I was first elected because people in South Omaha were living next to a hazardous waste site. It was unlicensed by the state, and they were very concerned about their children. Through a long process of getting nowhere, people wanted somebody in a position that could help them. So I was sort of unwillingly recruited to run for the legislature and to help deal with that situation. So for the next 4 terms in the legislature, I was one of the few voices leading the charge for doing some things to improve the environment, to develop renewable energy, and to be more thinking toward the future and how we generate electricity, how we supply our needs, but how we do it in a responsible way.
So that made you quite the waste management expert, didn't it?
Well, I got a lot of learning and I got a lot of education in terms of the legislative process. And fortunately, I had some successes and we laid the groundwork for some of the things that are happening today. And I guess you're right, it did lay the groundwork for Green Bellevue and the things I'm doing at the local level again.
Would you tell us how you got Green Bellevue going?
Well, originally, Mayor Gary Mixon asked me if I would start a green team in Bellevue. And he didn't have to twist my arm because I care about the environment and quality of life. So my immediate response was yes, and then I went to the public. And I contacted people that I knew had a similar interest who live in Bellevue and said, would you attend a meeting? They did, and we brainstormed a lot of things that we thought would improve the quality of life in Bellevue. And we put that list together, and then we started conducting monthly meetings with other people, and that was the beginnings of Green Bellevue.
And what projects were the first ones that you were able to do?
Well, we started off, we wanted to do something about safety on our streets. So we ended up getting an ordinance passed for complete streets, and that provides opportunities for people to ride bicycles, to walk, to have community transportation access beyond just a car or a truck for commerce. So the Complete Streets Citizen Panel has been meeting for the last few years and did a citizen survey, and we've identified a lot of areas where we can connect our existing bicycle trails. And when we connect those trails, we also connect the whole community of Bellevue, because different developments have individual trails, but they don't connect to the neighboring trails. So we're in the process of connecting those trails, which helps connect the community. The other thing we did early on was to create a tree ordinance with a tree board. We are one of the few cities probably in the country or maybe even the world that has a 1,400-acre forest right in the middle of it. We've got Fontenelle Forest along the bluffs, and trees are the reason people move to Bellevue. They like nature, they like wildlife, but the city has done virtually nothing up to this point to really care for the trees that we have or to prepare for the future by planting more trees. So our tree board has already planted 500 trees in the last 4 years, and this summer we will be planting another 250 trees, all in city parks. So we're paying it forward to the future by having those trees for the air quality, for the beauty, for the shade, and in our parks for people to help enjoy the parks.
No, there's no local arborist or tree specialist on city payroll?
The city does not have an arborist, unfortunately, other than the tree board. On the tree board, we do have 3 certified arborists, but we're in the process now, after passing the tree ordinance, of getting a Parks Department staff member certified as an arborist.
Right.
But it hasn't quite gotten there yet. He's still in training. But we do help code enforcement. We have gone out and inspected trees, dangerous trees. So where those trees are a potential risk, we can eliminate them. But we're more focused on the future and care for our community trees.
Right.
And along the way, probably a big item that we've done has been our annual Earth Day celebration.
Right.
A public celebration has been in Everett Park, where we bring kite flyers and clowns and children and families and people of all ages together to have a fun day, and it's fun with a purpose, where we look at more opportunities to do recycling. We've recycled over 1.5 tons of electronic waste, along with a number of other things, from shoes to ballpoint pens to toothbrushes, that are ongoing that we're doing.
All right. I remember at one time when our trash was picked up in Bellevue, they had a truck that sorted these things out. Now they're just, they dump them in all together, and then Papillion Sanitation takes them out and sorts them out. But it seems that they're limiting what we can recycle. Does Green Bellevue narrow that gap? Do you go into areas where you take the non-recyclables that the city won't take and do something with those?
We're working on those things, Mike. We currently have had a dumpster that took glass, but unfortunately all of the people dumping there weren't so thoughtful, and they were dumping couches and refrigerators, and we had to cancel that after almost 2 years. And in that short amount of time, approximately 19 months, we collected 50 tons of glass. So people are interested, and they're willing to go out of their way to recycle if we make it convenient. Green Bellevue is currently recycling shoes and pens and even the energy bar wrappers. We've got a host of things that we're filling in that Papillion Sanitation doesn't do. But currently, when people use the blue bin and put all of their recycling products in that, it, as you say, does go in one truck. It gets hauled to one location, and then it's put on a conveyor belt, and the aluminum, the tin, the paper, everything is sorted out, and it's all marketed from there. So this is an easy system. But what Green Bellevue has also done is work with Papillion Sanitation to develop some stickers, and those stickers say recycling. So if people want to put the stickers on their own lidded, wheeled, or larger container instead of an open blue bin that has access for rain and wind and animals to get into, people can use their own container as long as it's clearly marked. And in our city library and our city hall and at all Green Bellevue events, we give these stickers out free to the public, so it expands the type of container that they can recycle in. And this coming year, in our new contract with Papillion Sanitation, we're working to further expand the kinds of things that we can recycle and that the public can do. And we're still looking for another location for that glass container.
It's a matter of security and abuse of a true service.
Unfortunately.
What else is Green Bellevue going to be in the next few years?
Right now we're doing a number of movies over the summer, so we have access to information. On the 14th of July, we're doing a program on energy efficiency. We have some people that have solar collectors on their homes that are going to be giving a presentation on how people can use solar energy. We also have one on Bag It, about all the plastic bags that we get so freely in stores that are in trees and in the wind blowing all over the countryside. Millions, billions of these bags, some of which eventually end up in our oceans. We have a huge plastic cesspool out in the ocean currently. So we need to remove these things from the environment. We're working with businesses. We're educating the public how they can take their own bags. And we do give out reusable bags at the farmers market in Bellevue each Saturday and at all of our events so that people don't have to use those plastic bags. We're working at helping to educate the public with the films and the events, but we're also giving them some of the tools so that they don't have to do what seems the easy thing, but in the long run is not wise and good stewardship.
Exactly. Now, so much of our trash goes into landfills. What's the future of a landfill? It seems to me a terrible way to do it.
Well, it is, and a large part of what goes in the landfill could easily be diverted. We finally, some years back, started diverting yard waste. So we're composting that, and that's being reused. We could send a lot of things to thrift stores, secondhand stores, rather than putting them in the trash. We could do all of our food scraps and put those separately, and that could all be composted. And there is a business that's just starting up, and they're here in Sarpy County, and they're going to do some composting. So hopefully we can get that done to divert that amount of waste. The Sarpy County landfill will be closing within 2 years. At that time, the current site will become a transfer station. That transfer station will have all of the trucks dumping the refuge there, and then it will be picked up and put in another truck, and it will be hauled out to a landfill in David City. So we're going to increase the cost because of all the transportation, because we don't have a location in Sarpy County that we can get sited. Nobody wants a landfill next to them. Everybody wants to get rid of their garbage, but nobody. It's the old NIMBY symbol. You don't want it next to you. You don't want the litter in the trash. So increasingly, even in Nebraska, where we seem to have a lot of wide open spaces, we shouldn't be filling good agricultural land with trash and making dumps out of them.
And past dumps, we're going to be finishing up, as you said, the one in outside of Springfield. I remember the Cedar Island Road one.
Yes.
What does that land do afterwards?
Well, as you see, the Cedar Island landfill is just sitting there. It's got vegetation on it, but it's still leaking the methane gas from the anaerobic action that's happening under the ground as all of that old waste breaks down. So some of that gas is being flared off. Some of it is in the ground into surrounding areas and has gotten past the area. Right now, they're monitoring it. It's not a danger that we've identified, but nothing can ever be built on that site. It can never be used for anything. Perpetually, we just need to maintain the grass, keep the fence there to keep people off, and occasionally we have pockets or holes that develop in it where it sinks in from the settling and the decomposition. So we have to monitor it, and perpetually it will just sit there as a site that we can't do anything with.
Not a useful park area. It seemed to me that they first sold it as there would be all these wonderful parks that would be developed afterwards.
Yes.
And it hasn't happened.
Well, you can't build on it because you don't have a stable foundation.
Right.
And if you put a park on it and then you get a sinkhole or something caves in, you've got the risk and the liability to the public. So at this point, other than around the fence and the areas that have never been used as a landfill, it will need to remain simply as it is. Perhaps another 20 or 50 years, maybe it could be compressed enough that we could trust having people on it. But I don't feel confident to be able to do that yet.
This seems like a problem that involves citizen involvement. We can't say somebody should do it, government should do it all. We all have a part in that.
Exactly. If each of us monitors our own waste and we minimize what we purchase, if we only purchase the things that we really need, and then we take full responsibility, as they say, cradle to grave. From when we own it, instead of expecting somebody else to handle it and dispose of it, we assume full responsibility. We make sure it's either continued to be reused, gotten to somebody who can reuse it, or we get it recycled. And we each individually cut down our waste. I know it's possible. I set out less than one garbage can of trash a year, and I've been consistent over the last 10 years in that amount. I find a way to recycle virtually everything, and when I know I have to be responsible, I'm careful in what I take home.
Excellent. One of the things you mentioned earlier was Earth Day, and that involves so many young people. What does Green Bellevue do to bring up a new generation that understands better than our generation our responsibility of stewardship?
Right, that is so crucial. We have an outreach to all of our Bellevue schools, both Omaha Public Schools and Bellevue Public Schools, and we have many former teachers who are active in working with the students in the schools. So we have some feeder groups, ecology clubs in some of the schools. We have planted rain gardens, we've planted trees, we've planted some other gardens and areas around the schools that the students can take pride in. The trees are things that when the students plant them, they remember that, and as adults, they'll come back in future years if we make sure they survive, and they'll show those trees to their children. They then have an investment in the future, an investment in those plantings, and it helps to sensitize them. We also involve them in our annual litter cleanup. Once a year we go out and we clean up the parks each spring from all the winter litter and trash that blows around. So we involve the students in our film projects. We just purchased a number of books for the library, and those books all deal with the environment and responsible stewardship of the environment. So they will be able to be checked out at our public library, who's been an excellent partner. So we work with the city, with the volunteers, with the students, with the schools. We just helped to teach a summer school course on ecology at Mission Junior High School. So we have teachers and programs that are in the schools on a year-round basis, and we bring the students in with helping us in our programs so that they do have some ownership.
As a former teacher, that's a great program. In the last minute we have, what would you like to say to our audience about the issue of environment?
Well, I just want to thank people for all that they currently do and will continue to do, but ask them to look at their own practices and what else they may be able to contribute. But to all of the volunteers, and Bellevue is blessed with many volunteers who get involved in so many different aspects, thank you for helping to contribute and making Bellevue a wonderful place to live. People support Fontenelle Forest, which is a wonderful asset in Bellevue. Use our parks and use them responsibly. They pick up after their dogs. They take care of the things that they use. They put their litter in the containers. There are a few who don't and abuse it, and it's good to help remind people in a gentle and a supportive way about being more responsible. But my biggest message is thank you to the public. Thank you to everybody who does the right thing, makes a good contribution, and makes Bellevue a wonderful place to live.
And for those of us that know your record and know your lifetime of service, we thank you for that service, sir.
You're welcome.